Okay, our next speaker is Dr. David Fields. He's an experimental physicist, formerly of Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and the founder and president of ORION near Oak Ridge, and is the director of the Tamke-Allan Observatory. And as soon as I get the presentation up, I'll turn it over to David. He's got an impressive list of co-authors for today's presentation, and we'll let David go from there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Les.
Yeah.
Thanks, Les. Thanks, Robert. Thanks to the preceding speakers. I'm happy to be here, and it's really set up nicely, this flow where we have to talk about medical issues and funding issues and entertainment industry. All those come into my talk in a surprising way, it seems like. I'm going to talk about receivers. And just for fun, how many of you, sort of like me, enjoy playing with tubes and transistors and building things? Okay, great. How many of you know about software-defined receivers? It's good. How many of you know about pragmatic chaos? Yeah, okay. Well, it sounds like a 25-cent phrase, you know, pragmatic chaos. It's actually, you're off by 4 times 10 to the 6. 4.00 times 10 to the 6. It's much more than a 25-cent word. So we'll go through that. I changed the title, trying to make it's sort of a Bob's, especially last night when my computer went down.
Just down arrow.
Just a down arrow? Yep. Sounds good, Robert. Okay, well, this is a basic radio transmitter and receiver. And Dr. Hertz did this based on Maxwell's predictions from maybe 40 years or 30 years earlier, and very simple. It's a one-component transmitter, one-component receiver, and it's to start off what I call hardware-defined receivers. And this was salient. This was the way to do things for about 1 century plus 10 years. Things are changing, and I'm going to come back to that. The idea that things change. This is a good demo, but it's not so sensitive. To be sensitive, we do things like have coherers. And the early coherers were very primitive. That's the little gadget up in the top. But they turn on when you have a voltage developed across them by an external electromagnetic field. So it's digital. Because it was digital, even though you can bias them and play with them and make them just immensely high gain, they're digital. So forget coherers for a century plus 10 years and go to things that detect a signal and demodulate it and give the information for music, for entertainment, for words. Go to the gallium crystal. Go to the upper left, the solid state crystal, or maybe a razor blade with a piece of carbon, things like that. Go to the DeForest and Fleming innovations with vacuum tubes. And you start getting new properties, really sensitive gadgets, like the triode, the point contact transistor, which wasn't from Bell Labs. Bell Labs developed it. It's actually from a Canadian fellow, about 1925. He played around with these gadgets. And the bipolar transistor. These things can amplify, they're very sensitive, and field effect transistors. They can oscillate, they can provide the basis for a lot of hardware designs. Add resistors, capacitors, inductors, display and audio options. Hardware-defined receivers really had their day. This is a hardware-defined device, operated as a transmitter. It's digital. Turn the arc on or off. And if you wire it up, it's a wonderful antenna connected to a coherer. It's very, very sensitive. Add a pure genius, Nikola Tesla, and the gray matter there, sitting in the chair with him, perched atop is his body. And I consider him the first radio astronomer. There's a lot of good rationale for that viewpoint. Karl Jansky was a methodical man and did wonderful work. But Tesla's radio, his receiver was very effective. So you're looking at some of my friends over at National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Green Bank, mid-2012. And that's one of my co-authors, Bogdan. That's one of my co-authors, Paul, over there. And we're having a lot of fun. And behind us is Karl Jansky's radio, hardware-defined receiver. Really a cool radio. And it's 50 or 100 parts, something like that. But very sensitive, and he plotted the radiation of the Milky Way. Receivers have gone a long way. This is kind of the end point in a way of evolution, because you go to the radio astronomy observatories. I'm interested in the field, and you find, and a few of them still the relics, still the old hardware-defined receivers. Very, very impressive. So you ask, how far can we take these? Bigger and better, all the way to the point where they can be replaced by something that is agile, something that's digital, something that operates from software, and that in which we can say, let's change the modulation, let's change the averaging, let's change the display, let's change the entire way to look at, record, and interpret the information in the spectrum. That's the software-defined receiver. And it's wonderful. It's more or less going obsolete. So, wonderful for radio astronomy, amateur radio, military operations. All the military radios now are SDRs. Citizen communications, in my opinion, starships, not. But why is that? What's the reason for it? I'll tell you how it works. Basically, you've got a little bit of analog electronics in the front, enough to do some tuning, maybe some frequency shifting, and immediately you convert to digital. From that point on, it's crunching numbers. Moore's law is helping you. Moore's law is more number crunching components in a smaller space. So this looks a little more complicated, and it's because Paul and Bogdan and I and Stan Kurtz are working on RASDR, which is a software-defined receiver for radio astronomy. When this is finished, it's got an antenna, a little bit of front-end electronics, more than you think maybe from this, but mostly a lot of digital stuff in the back. And it's connected up to a personal computer, or 2 or 3 or 4, how many we want. This is amateur stuff. This is radio astronomy for the amateur. And here you see it. This is RASDR. This is RASDR ugly form in the benchtop. It actually sort of works. We've done some things with it. We've taken it to NRAO. And it's not in quite the ugly form. It's not benchtop. It's built into a case. And we run around trying to make it work completely as it should. Goes from the intrinsic little part, which was part of what you saw, goes from 400 to 3,800 megahertz. And when we add on some outside things, it gets down to 15 kilohertz. So one radio covers 15 kilohertz to 3,800 megahertz, as many modulations as we can understand and as we can put into the software. And the software, these are understood digital operations. They can be operated almost error-free, as opposed to analog components, which are always approximate mathematical operations. So it's very well understood. Connect the output to a spectral analysis program, like Spectrum Lab, just pulling something free off the shelf. You can program it in a GUI, and you get not a single frequency, single modulation. You get a spectrum of radio frequencies. Choose the one you want, choose the modulation you want, time average. You even have a waterfall display scrolling down to show you how things are changing in time. It's really cool. SDRs are all the new military radios and all the new radio astronomy installations. That's the square kilometer array, and it multiple antennas, multiple SDRs. That's SETI at home. Pick up data from Arecibo, run it through the SDRs, make it available for our software analysis on home computers. This is an impressive SDR. This is what the professional guys are using. It's called the Roach boards. And they are standardized and evolving set of SDRs. So SDRs came about 1995, and they're rapidly taking over cell phones and just about everywhere else. Some of them are not very big. This one is 2 feet by, 1 meter by 3 meters in size. But it's a photomicrograph, and you can carry this sort of thing around in your pocket like this. And we don't even use all of it. We sort of use part of it, and connect it to a little antenna. It looks like this. There's actually an antenna in the package. And you've got the start of an SDR. What you don't have in the pocket is the background part of it, because you really need a computer. Doesn't have to be a very good one unless you're crunching wide bandwidth. But that's an SDR. And the part on the left is a commercial product that you hijack. So not too hard. And you get something like this. You get the spectral display, you get the waterfall display, and pretty cool. So cat's meow, right? It's really a cool thing. So it'll take us to the stars. Well, maybe. The difficulty is it's just not quite smart enough. It's great for high-dose involvement in programming and hacking. And it's a wonderful thing. But what we need is something that's agile. And so, just like we talked about HDR, hardware-defined receivers, and SDR, software-defined receivers, I want you to think about ADR, algorithm-defined receivers, where the algorithm can be flexible, can move, can change the software as it's needed, as it encounters a new region of space, as it encounters greater distance, greater new types of interference to be dealt with, new types of perhaps extraterrestrial signals as we would cross a tight beam. So it's got to be active, it's got to be operating autonomously, it's got to be coping with different electromagnetic environments, it has to deal with new types of transient signals, it has to show the existence of these signals, to pack them, demodulate them, display them in some optimal way. And it has to cope with these evolving analog and digital modes of communication that become possible, whether they're discovered on the home planet or on the starship. There has to be a continuing adaptation as the supercomputers model and understand and change how they interpret the signals that are there. So the algorithm-defined receiver is what we need to look forward to. And it's easy to come up with stuff we need to look forward to, and I'm going to show you when it's happening already. It's kind of an outgrowth of the early computer techniques. How about least squares fitting? Least squares fitting pulls out a good parameter. And it's like compared to ADR, it's like a baby's first steps are to a marathon runner's pattern of running. The pattern search techniques, which I used to use for EPA and NRC, those are interesting. You sit there and you churn for a while, you actually pull out optimal values for something you absolutely cannot measure. Genetic algorithms, currently in use at Oak Ridge National Laboratory for the spallation neutron source. It's really cool to say what are the optimal arrangements of this enormous building full of equipment, 1,000 components. How do you move, how do you tweak things? The genetic algorithms attempt, with some success, to predict what tweaks must be done in the equipment. And then there's the 25-cent word, pragmatic chaos. And I said that's not right. It's a 25-cent word. It's off by a factor of 4 times 10 to the 6, because the true value of pragmatic chaos is $1 million. And you see here the happy crew of people on the pragmatic chaos team accepting a $1 billion check paid for by the entertainment industry, paid for by Netflix. And very surprising thing, this was 3 years ago. This is going on. The entertainment industry pays a lot for adaptive algorithms. It's driving the evolution. The financial industry pays a lot for adaptive algorithms. This is a piece of business and entertainment. It's got a lot of applications, but a type of algorithmic development that's being pushed, that's being very, very well supported. Algotrading, 80% of the U.S. and the English Stock Exchange trades are by software trading, algorithmic trading, where each machine is looking for the algorithms in the patterns used by the other machine and anticipating what's going on. It is said that the critical time to grab the advantage is about 6 microseconds. They're competing. 6 microseconds is 6,000 feet. 6,000 feet. Nanosecond is a foot. So where you put your data crunching is important. And topographical data analysis is one of the things that helps your algorithm. How about in health? Well, we've already been talking about health. It's so important to us. And We'd give anything, to get a handle on it. Well, if we try to quantify that, the Heritage Health Prize is already launched, and driving that is $30 billion a year on unnecessary hospital admissions. There's a lot more driving that too. 30 billion is the tip of the iceberg. Try $2.2 trillion a year for healthcare. That's driving algorithmic developments. There's now a $3 million prize for coming up with the algorithms to predict how to treat people, what's going to happen when they go to the hospital, who gets in, who does not get in. The prize is out there. DARPA Space Challenge, the prize is out there for deciding how to measure, describe, and cope with 500,000 pieces of space junk. DARPA 2012 Spectrum Challenge is out there. I'm not mentioning most of the military stuff because I don't know about it. I'd be waving my hands too much. I'm just mentioning what's real. 2012 Spectrum Challenge is out there. And DARPA says, can you program a radio to dominate the spectrum? And, software-defined radios dominate display. They don't dominate the spectrum. They can not only dominate what's being received and interpreted, but what the transmitter is doing. So my thesis is successful interstellar travel will actually require ADR, algorithm-defined receivers. They must be goal-seeking, autonomous, and flexible. They must do linked algorithmic optimization without human intervention. Mathematically exact operations. They've got to be agile in identifying how to respond, when to hide, if we're going to be going places we haven't been before. So, not a sales pitch, it just says, this is how things are going. It's important, just as ship design, human factors, and engines are important. It's actually working already. It's the motivation in making trading decisions, medical strategizing, gaming play selection. I didn't mention that one. Evaluating entertainment rankings, achieving military dominance, and providing intellectual pursuits, which I guess is what I'm doing. It's a good time to review the timing, not for here, lessons looking, but for what we've done. Since 1880, we've had 1 century and 10 years of hardware-defined receivers. We've now had almost 20 years of software-defined radio. Still going on, still being developed. Pretty important. But I think this is the start of what we need in computer capabilities to solve our health problems, to predict crowd behavior, to hopefully invest in astute and humanly reasonable ways. And it's going to produce these tools that we need for interstellar missions. So, it's a new tool. Okay.
Very good.
No questions, or Robert?
Could you, for the non-software people in the audience, could you clarify the difference between an algorithm and software?
Yeah, because software is used for everything. And that's why I changed the title. I said evolving, I don't know, algorithm is itself defined as a software that evolves itself. And we can take that a lot of places. But it's a software capable of identifying patterns and fundamentally changing what it's doing. And we're already using things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The real question comes down to how many variables in an algorithm when you're developing these adaptive processes. If you can define how many interesting nodes in your spectrum, then I can write you algorithms.
Yeah.
When you're saying, well, somewhere between 10 kilohertz and a terahertz, you may have log normal, I can't even guess how many nodes. I usually, when I'm testing, go through about 50 nodes at that point. So when you're looking at trying to analyze that signal, how many interesting locations do you think there might be?
If it's a very narrow piece of frequency spectrum, you have amplitude and time in its simplest form. And then you've got to say what's hidden in there and how's it hidden and how many levels of information are contained in that. You know, is it the whale songs that go for 2 days, and the patterns are very long-lived? And is it a high-level language where we've got to really be serious about it and it's complex, or is it dashes and dots? That's a little easier. There may be some long patterns in
The
there.
one zero is a lot easier to figure out than if they had an alphabet encoded in.
Yeah,
two.
yeah. I enjoyed Contact, the movie Contact, dealing with different levels.
Yeah.
It caused me troubles when I would talk with our friends at MIT and say, I'd like for my students to listen to these signals because sometimes the brain can hear things and maybe pull out some patterns. And there's a silence, and Preeti Pratap said, we don't encourage our students to listen to the signals. That was a haystack. I guess they didn't want people running in and listening. But
Yeah.
I always thought it was useful to hear things.
An interesting follow-up to what you just said. In neuroscience, we do encourage our students to listen to the signals because
Yeah.
many times the brain is much better interpreter. And we can see things we can hear patterns that are very difficult to pull out with the computer in neuroscience.
Yeah, and then once we hear them, we say, hey, how can we make the computer look for them?
Right.
But you know, science is wonderful at explaining, I think, just excellent. But in terms of making discovery, we rely on serendipity and accident. The new things, we've got to apply every measurement technique we can. William Lucas looking around, hey, that's great, we got to get him more equipment.
At the outer edge of your ability to do algorithmic detection, you run into a problem that's tantamount to a cryptanalysis with unknown.
Yeah, it is.
context and unknown
And they have some nice tools, the crypto people really do.
Well, I mean, you know, Bayes' theorem has got to be a Bayes. Anyway, but the point being is that there is an edge of applicability to this that has a hard computational boundary to it. So there's more of a comment than a real question. But there's an interesting question about where that boundary is, because at least on the cryptographic side, it's not well understood, at least in public scholarship, about where that is.
Yeah, you know, Moore's Law is helping us, doubles our capability every 18 years.
Months.
18 months, doubles our either our density or our complexity. We're not even really fully making use of the third dimension and stacking things up yet in the chips. Not fully making use of optical communications between the LEDs and the phototransistors. So the hardware is growing so rapidly, but do we have that genesis of where the thing starts, the software can start modifying itself or not? I suspect we do, but there are all these well-funded and very interesting areas. Those are being developed. So do you think it's being done in cryptanalysis?
We'll talk offline, because that gets into much longer than we have time.
Yeah, it does.
Conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of those diversions.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.